Welcome to Stephen FM AI Trump Daily Dump. Today, we're diving into a set of documents that are painting a really startling picture of a crisis brewing in Ireland. And it's probably not what you're thinking. This isn't just about local politics. Nope. It's about how the shadow of a potential U.S. presidency is, according to these sources, pushing an entire nation's institutions right to the breaking point. Let's get into it. This right here, this is the phrase from the analysis that just kicks everything off. The source material doesn't treat this as just another political headline. It's framing it as a genuine, destabilizing force. It's like this looming shadow is an amplifier, taking all of Ireland's existing issues, policy paralysis, internal fights, and just cranking the volume all the way up. So what is this invisible force, really? That's the question we're tackling. What these documents are telling us is that it's more than just a case of the jitters. They're suggesting that this huge external pressure is exposing some deep, deep weaknesses that were already there, hiding right in the foundations of the Irish state. Let's look at the first piece of evidence. All right, first up, we've got a case study in, well, chaos, really. A pretty dramatic policy reversal. The source material points to this as the perfect example of the bigger problem. A government that's apparently so nervous about what's coming next that it can't even hold its ground on a domestic policy for a single week. I mean, just look at the sheer speed of this collapse. It's staggering. On Monday, they announce a firm new policy. By Tuesday, the big players in business start pushing back, hard. Wednesday, the government's already wobbling, hinting they might rethink it. And by Thursday, poof, it's completely gone. The analysis links this directly to that wider anxiety, that fear of rocking the boat at all with the Trump factor on the horizon. And this is the word, the single word the source documents use to describe the executive after this whole thing: hapless. That's a brutal assessment, isn't it? It suggests an administration that's not just unpopular, but maybe fundamentally incapable of sticking to its own decisions the second the pressure gets turned on. And that's where you have to ask the big question, right? This really gets to the core of the whole argument in these documents. This isn't just about some business rates. This little local failure is being presented as a symptom of a much, much bigger vulnerability. Because if a government folds this easily at home, what on earth happens when a truly unpredictable global force starts making demands? Okay, so it's not just about policies getting reversed. This pressure, according to the documents, is also cracking the leadership team right down the middle. It's apparently feeling this massive internal fracture right at the very top of the government. You've got these two key leaders, Micheál Martin and Simon Harris, and they're apparently just being pulled in completely opposite directions over how to handle a potential Trump administration. Martin, he's all about caution, the old-school diplomatic way. But Harris, he wants Ireland to have a louder, more assertive voice out there. The result? Total gridlock. They're tugging in opposite directions when they need a united front more than ever. And this quote from the source, man, it just says it all. It shows you just how out of whack their priorities seem to be. While this massive geopolitical storm is gathering on the horizon, the leadership is reportedly getting bogged down in what the source calls parish-pump arguments over local stuff. It's like they're fiddling with minor issues while a much bigger threat just keeps growing. So, if the government was hopeless, what about the country's foundation itself? Well, the word the analysis uses for that is this: cracked. This single word suggests the damage isn't just superficial. The infighting and the policy weakness, they're just signs of a deeper, structural problem. So we've seen political weakness, we've seen internal division. Now let's talk about the economy, because this is where the threat gets really, really tangible. Ireland's economy is uniquely vulnerable, and according to these sources, they are basically flying blind straight into a storm. The source material basically lays out a recipe for a perfect storm here. You've got an economy that is super dependent on U.S. trade, you've got a potential U.S. administration that is described as erratic, and here's the kicker. The analysis states the Irish government has no plan to deal with it. The implication is that their domestic policy isn't even fully in their own hands anymore. It's being driven by unpredictable events happening 3,000 miles away. Okay, now for what might be the single most wild, most vivid symbol of this entire new global reality that Ireland seems to be struggling with. It represents a complete shift away from that quiet, predictable diplomacy that guys like Micheál Martin are so used to. So, the sources start talking about this idea of UFC diplomacy. And what is that? Well, think of it this way. It's all about spectacle over substance, personality over protocol. It's loud, it's unpredictable, and it basically throws the old rulebook right out the window. And get this isn't just some clever metaphor. The documents say it's a real planned event, a UFC fight night on the south lawn of the White House. I mean, can you even picture that? The analysis points to this as the ultimate symbol of the new era. It's like the traditional St. Patrick's Day bowl of shamrocks is being tossed aside for a fighting cage. And this just brings the whole dilemma into sharp focus, doesn't it? Irish diplomacy has always been this careful, deliberate game of chess, right? Built on relationships and quiet talks. But what do you do when the other player just kicks the board over and wants to have a cage fight instead? The old rulebook is totally useless. Okay, let's pull all this together. What does it all mean? What's the big picture here? The source material frames Ireland's situation not as some unique, isolated case, but as a really powerful example of a global stress test that could be happening everywhere. And this right here, this is the single most important thing to take away from all this. This is our North Star for this analysis. An unpredictable force like the Trump factor doesn't create a country's problems. What it does is act like a dye poured into water, instantly revealing all the tiny hairline fractures that were already there in its government, in its leadership, and in its whole economic strategy. So that really brings us to the big question for you. Is this just an Irish story, or is this same dynamic playing out all over the place? Think about another country you follow closely. Do you see a similar stress test happening, where some big external pressure is revealing all the weaknesses inside? Let me know in the comments which country comes to your mind. And hey, if you appreciate explainers like this one, where we actually dig into the documents to see what's really going on behind the headlines, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button for more. It really helps. So we're going to leave you with this final kind of heavy question to think about. As the world stage starts to look more and more like a prize fight, are the old, cautious, rule-based institutions that we rely on, are they even built to survive, or are they just destined to fail? And that's the latest from Stephen FM AI Trump Daily Dump.